Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. US President Donald Trump signs executive decree to undo Obama's climate change regulations. Trump administration says it will prioritize American jobs above addressing climate change. UK Prime Minister formally begins Britain's divorce from the European Union. May declares there's no turning back. UK's EU ambassador hand delivers Article 50 letter to Council President Donald Tusk. In a unique swap deal, Malaysian authorities clear names of 3 North Korean nationals detained on suspicion of Kim Jong-nam's murder. Kim's body and suspects swapped for 9 Malaysian nationals. Deposed South Korean President Park Geun-hye arrested and jailed after long saga. Seoul court says it ordered Park's arrest as there was a fear that she may try to destroy evidence. Our top focus on the program this week, US President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Tuesday to undo a slew of Obama-era climate change regulations that his administration says is hobbling oil drillers and coal miners. The decree's main target is former President Barack Obama's Clean Power Plan that required states to slash carbon emissions from power plants. Here's more. US President Donald Trump on Tuesday signed an executive order rolling back Obama-era rules aimed at curbing climate change. The president said this would put an end to the war on coal and job-killing regulations. During the campaign, Trump vowed to pull the US out of the Paris climate deal agreed in December 2015.
Today, I'm taking bold action to follow through on that promise. My administration is putting an end to the war on coal. Going to have clean coal, really clean coal. With today's executive action, I am taking historic steps to lift the restrictions on American energy, to reverse government intrusion, and to cancel job-killing regulations.
The Energy Independence Executive Order suspends more than half a dozen measures enacted by his predecessor and boosts fossil fuels. Trump takes a very different approach to the environment from Obama. The former president argued that climate change was real and cannot be ignored. Among the initiatives now withdrawn is the Clean Power Plan, which required states to slash carbon emissions to meet US commitments under the Paris Accord. The regulation has been unpopular in Republican-run states where it has been subject to legal challenges, especially from businesses that rely on burning oil, coal and gas. The Trump administration says that scrapping the plan will put people to work and reduce America's reliance on imported fuel.
This will allow the EPA to focus on its primary mission of protecting our air and protecting our water. Together, we are going to start a new energy revolution, one that celebrates American production on American soil. We want to make our goods here instead of shipping them in from other countries all over the world. They ship in, take the Americans' money, take the money, go home, take our jobs, take our companies. No longer, folks, no longer. We believe in those really magnificent words, made in the USA.
Business groups have praised the Trump administration's move, but environmental campaigners have condemned it. Outside the White House, a few hundred protesters gathered to vent their displeasure at the executive order.
It's a grab bag of terrible ideas by the fossil fuel industry, top to bottom, designed to take us backward on progress on climate, not forward, at the very time when we and the world need to be moving forward.
Meanwhile, China said it is still committed to the Paris Climate Change Accord. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said climate change was a common challenge for everyone and the Paris Agreement was a landmark that came about with the hard work of the international community.
We believe the Paris Agreement was hard won. the international community embodied a high degree of consensus, which still uphold that all sides should take proactive steps to jointly push the enforcement of this agreement.
The Paris Agreement seeks to phase out net greenhouse gas emissions by the second half of the century and limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Each country has put forward national plans to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, joining me for a chat this week to talk about this is the Deputy National Affairs Editor of the Hindustan Times, Chetan Chauhan. Chetan, as far as this particular move is concerned, it shouldn't come as a surprise, should it? Because Trump, right through his campaign, has said that he is not happy with the Paris Climate Accord and he's going to pull out of it. We still do not know whether the US is going to pull out of it or not because he's not mentioned it as such, but he's clearly, undone everything that Obama has done.
No, it's not a surprise at all because during his campaign, he has said that the climate change is not happening. He was described across the world as the biggest climate skeptic we have seen in recent years. So he had also said in the campaign that the clean energy proposals of Barack Obama, he will withdraw them immediately once he takes over, which he has done. But withdrawing from the Paris climate deal may happen because the next round of talks is only in May in Bonn. So when that happens, the US may formally withdraw from the Paris climate deal. But before that, I think the biggest impact of this would be that the Paris climate deal will not be an effective instrument to check climate change anymore. Like Kyoto Protocol, it died within few years of implementation because US withdrew from Kyoto Protocol after agreeing in Kyoto that they will ratify the protocol. So similar thing has happened with the Paris climate deal because when Kyoto was signed, Democrats were in power. When Republicans came to power, they withdrew. Similar thing has happened. But the worst thing is that the US will again become one of the biggest users of coal. There is nothing called clean coal. You can reduce emissions, carbon emissions from coal, but you cannot have zero carbon emissions from coal. So what President Trump is saying that we will have clean coal, nowhere in the world there is something on clean coal. Or clean energy is basically the renewables, the next generation of energy. Across the world, countries have been adopting next generation of energy. They've, apart from being cleaner, lesser emission, it has other advantages also. One, it is that it democratizes the energy use for people. Like if you want in your home, you can have a solar power system. But in the era of coal or thermal, you can't have, you are dependent on a grid.
Yes.
So in a large part of the world, developing countries like Africa, India, in Asia, solar renewables is a solution for decentralized power. By announcing the decree, by this executive order, the US has again showed the power of fossil fuel lobby in the United States. It is one of the biggest lobbies after the arms lobby in the United States, and huge amount of money they have spent across the world investing in thermal or coal-based power plants. The next step, interesting would be after this, what will happen in Europe? How the Europe will push the clean energy agenda. Clean energy agenda was never a US agenda till Barack Obama took over.
Yes.
And in his second term, he pushed it much more than he did in the first. And it was his aim to have a Paris climate deal. If you remember, in 2015, the President Obama came there. In the last hours, he spoke with almost every world leader to have a deal, including Prime Minister of India. And it was quite a balanced deal with the objective approach where the countries can review their standards or targets every 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. And it's one of the countries which can decide. If the US wants, within the same framework also, it can change their targets. It can it has a window for US to remain in Paris climate deal and negotiate.
Sure, fair enough. Let's talk about another aspect of it. China suddenly seems to be filling this gap, has been coming out and speaking about climate and everything else. Is it just superficial as of now, or is China really serious about it and filling the gap of the US really?
No, if you see the business of renewables, Europe till about 10 years ago were the leaders. They have most patented technologies in solar, wind, offshore. But of late, China is becoming a leader. It is already a leader in solar manufacturing. No country in the world can compete with China on manufacturing solar panels. They can produce a panel which is 6% efficient to 15 to 16% efficient, which is one of the best. And the rates and the price is so less that nobody can compete. Similar is with the wind. The wind turbines which are coming across the world are mostly manufactured in China. The companies, maybe the European companies, maybe some American companies, but the manufacturing is happening in China. So the grasp of China in the renewable industry, especially in manufacturing, is huge. So China agreeing to a Paris climate deal, pushing the clean energy agenda is beneficial to China, because China knows in the next 20 years, the jobs will be in the clean energy sector, not only in China, but across the world.
Sure.
If you have to send your guys to install a huge solar panel, solar park, they will send the guys from China will go and install it. And if you have to maintain it, the guys from China will go. So it is the second big economic activity. It would be, I think, in the next 10 years, renewables will be the big activity, and China will have a big role to play in that. And though India is also trying, but one area it has really not worked for India is in the manufacturing. India has a huge target of 175 gigawatts of renewables, of which 100 is solar. And many states have putting up huge solar parks. But most of the solar panels are coming from China. We have not been from China. In India also, they are coming from China, and we have not been able to boost our manufacturing.
All right. I'll have to leave it at that on, as far as this discussion is concerned. Thank you so much, Chetan Chauhan, for joining us on the program, putting things into perspective for us.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, moving on now. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was jailed for 15 days and fined $350 for organizing and leading anti-government protests in the country on Sunday. Navalny called for protests spread over 80 cities against alleged corruption by Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. Over 1,000 protesters were detained by the police. Here's more.
A day after being detained for leading one of the biggest anti-government protests in Moscow, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny appeared in court on Monday. An upbeat and defiant Navalny said Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev should be summoned by the court for questioning regarding Sunday's protests. He argued that the Prime Minister's corrupt activities have forced people to come to the streets. On Sunday, more than 60,000 Russians took part in over 80 rallies across Russia, including capital Moscow, in the biggest anti-government protests since 2011-2012. The protests were called by opposition leader Navalny after reports claiming that Russian Prime Minister Medvedev amassed huge wealth, including mansions, yachts and vineyards that far outstripped his official salary, were published.
If PM is guilty, then he must be punished. Since our courts are subject to corruption, case won't be investigated.
Protest will not be enough. The authorities need to be hit over the head. Then they will realize what is happening.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has dismissed Sunday's protests as mere provocation by Navalny. Nearly 12 hours after reports of protests emerged, the US strongly condemned the detention of protesters. The European Union too called for immediate release of the detained protesters. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come, in one of the most significant steps by a British leader since World War II. Theresa May notifies the EU that Britain would quit the bloc it joined in 1973. UK's EU ambassador hand-delivers letter to Council President Donald Tusk. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, Britain's departure from the EU is a historic moment from which there can be no turning back, UK's Prime Minister Theresa May said on Wednesday. She was speaking after Britain's EU ambassador formally triggered the 2-year exit process by handing a letter to EU Council President Donald Tusk. The European Parliament warned security cooperation was not on the table as it fired its opening salvo in what are expected to be tough negotiations. Here's a report.
So here it is, 6 pages. The notification from Prime Minister Theresa May triggering Article 50.
UK Prime Minister Theresa May on Wednesday triggered the 2-year formal process of negotiations that will lead to Britain leaving the European Union after 44 years. A letter invoking Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty and officially notifying the EU of Britain's decision to withdraw from the bloc was hand-delivered to European Council President Donald Tusk in Brussels by British Ambassador to the EU, Tim Barrow.
A few minutes ago in Brussels, the United Kingdom's permanent representative to the EU handed a letter to the President of the European Council on my behalf, confirming the government's decision to invoke Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union. The Article 50 process is now underway, and in accordance with the wishes of the British people, the United Kingdom is leaving the European Union. This is an historic moment from which there can be no turning back. Britain is leaving the European Union.
EU Council President Donald Tusk said there was no reason to pretend it was a happy day. We already miss you, he said, adding that there was nothing to win and that now the Brexit process was about damage control.
There is no reason to pretend that this is a happy day, neither in Brussels nor in London. We already miss you. Thank you and goodbye.
EU member states said they regretted that the UK will leave the Union, but are ready for the process that now will have to follow. I wish for Great Britain and the European Union to remain close partners. To me, the United Kingdom remains a part of Europe with whom we share a lot, not least our common values.
The question is not to punish the UK for a vote made by British people. The question on both sides is to organize precisely and smoothly, such a decision. My priority will be to protect the European Union, the interest of the European Union, and the interest of the European citizen. And my deep wish is to have Great Britain with the European Union, even in another relationship. But I think, especially on defense matters, it's important to work together.
Meanwhile, opinions over Brexit continue to differ in Britain.
To leave the European Union was the reason UKIP, the UK Independence Party, was founded. And today is our day when we start to see our first steps towards success and to achieving that goal. So for me, it's a very happy day.
Well, nobody will know the detail other than the negotiators. But remember, this is an argument that was carried out in public over many months. And so the people accepted the point of view that if it is in the interests of our friends on the European continent and ourselves to continue with some of the arrangements that we have had or to reach new arrangements, that will happen.
We're not united behind Theresa. Theresa May said that the country is united behind her. We are not united behind Theresa May. We are united to remain in Europe.
Britain voted to leave the EU last June after a campaign that divided the country. In a close result, 52% voted for Brexit, while 48% wanted to stay in the EU. Scotland and Northern Ireland voted overwhelmingly to remain in the EU, while England and Wales, with a much larger combined population, voted to leave. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Going on, now 9 Malaysians freed by Pyongyang made an emotional return home after Kuala Lumpur sent back the body of the assassinated half-brother of North Korea's leader to end a bitter diplomatic feud. 3 North Koreans wanted for questioning over the murder also returned home on Friday. Kim Jong-nam was killed with the lethal nerve agent VX on February 13th at Kuala Lumpur airport, triggering a major diplomatic clash between the two countries.
Nine Malaysian nationals who had been held in the North Korean capital of Pyongyang returned home to Kuala Lumpur early on Friday morning. Their return came after Malaysia and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea reached an agreement on the dispute over the death of Kim Jong-nam, the estranged half-brother of North Korea's top leader Kim Jong-un, in Kuala Lumpur last month. In a joint communique issued by the two countries, Malaysia agreed to transfer the body of the deceased Kim to his family after North Korea produced all the required documentation. Part of the exchange saw the two sides also agreeing to lift the ban imposed on each other's citizens and guarantee their safety and security within their respective territories.
I welcome the return of the 9 Malaysians from Pyongyang, both embassy staff and their family members, who were prohibited from leaving North Korea since 7 March this year.
The 9 Malaysians left Pyongyang for their homeland on a chartered plane which transferred in southeast China's Fuzhou city. Upon their arrival in Kuala Lumpur, the detained diplomats were greeted by emotional family members and the waiting media. One of those detained said that the travel ban ordeal had been particularly hard on their families.
And the DPRK government imposed the travel ban which prevented from leaving, we were very concerned, especially since we had committed no wrong. But we know that we had to keep our spirit up. I must admit that most of us were concerned that our parents and close family members particularly were worried about for us.
Prime Minister Najib Razak on Thursday declared on Twitter that the diplomatic crisis with North Korea was over. He had announced that the body was being sent to North Korea. Foreign Minister Anifa confirmed the body was sent back to North Korea after being kept in a hospital morgue in Kuala Lumpur for more than 6 weeks.
Now that the autopsy process has been completed and the body has been returned to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea as per the family's requests, and travel restrictions on Democratic People's Republic of Korea nationals leaving Malaysia are also now lifted.
North Korea and Malaysia were plunged into the dispute over the death of a North Korean national at Kuala Lumpur International Airport on February 13th. Tensions flared when the North said Malaysia tried to hide the truth of the incident, while Malaysia accused the DPRK of being behind the mysterious death of the victim, who was identified as Kim Jong-nam. Both countries banned citizens of the other side from leaving their country after Malaysia expelled North Korea's ambassador in late February. North Korea then declared the Malaysian ambassador in Pyongyang persona non grata. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, disgraced South Korean President Park Geun-hye was sent to 20 days detention on charges of corruption. Park is accused of extorting big businesses for personal favors and abusing the power of the office. If convicted, Park faces more than 10 years in prison. Here's more.
Ousted South Korean President Park Geun-hye has been lodged at the Seoul Detention Center. This after the Central District Court found her arrest necessary as there was a risk of destruction of evidence. Park was grilled for nearly 9 hours on Thursday on charges of corruption, bribery, abuse of authority and leaking government secrets. She is accused of colluding with a friend, Choi Soon-sil, to pressure business houses to contribute funds in return for political favors. Meanwhile, Park's supporters held rallies outside the court against her trial.
The impeachment was a fraud with no valid evidence. We are raising our voices to the acting president to proclaim martial law to restore the country if the arrest warrant is issued.
Prosecutors now have up to 20 days to file formal charges and put the impeached president on trial. Though Park denies the accusations against her, if convicted, she could face more than 10 years in prison. In a dramatic fall from power, Park, South Korea's first woman president, became its first democratically elected leader to be thrown out of office in March. The former president was stripped of her immunity following her dismissal. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with some sports news from around the globe in our segment Sports Action.
Argentina star striker Lionel Messi has asserted his innocence after being hit with a 4-match international ban for verbally abusing an official, saying that he was yelling to the air. The action has been taken by FIFA's disciplinary panel against Messi for his insults aimed at and comments about the mother of Brazilian assistant referee Gilson Silva during Argentina's 1-0 win over Chile last week. Having already missed his side's 0-2 defeat against Bolivia on Tuesday due to the ban, Messi insisted that he has been unfairly punished. Neymar continued his fine run of form as Brazil virtually booked their place in next year's World Cup with a comfortable 3-0 victory over Paraguay in a qualifying clash in Sao Paulo on Wednesday. Liverpool midfielder Philippe Coutinho opened the scoring for Brazil just 10 minutes before the break. Neymar added the second goal for the home side in the 64th minute after missing a second-half penalty. Just 4 minutes before the final whistle, Marcelo scored another goal for the home side to make it 3-0. Oklahoma City Thunder's Russell Westbrook made the highest-scoring triple-double in NBA history as his side beat Orlando Magic 114-106. Westbrook scored 57 points as well as notching up 13 rebounds and 11 assists. It was his 38th triple-double of the season, just 3 short of the NBA record set by Oscar Robertson with 8 games remaining. A triple-double means a player has recorded a double-digit number in 3 of the 5 statistical categories: points, rebounds, assists, steals and blocks. Turkish female distance runners Elvin Abelegesi and Gamze Bulut are set to be stripped of silver medals from the 2008 and 2012 Olympic Games after being handed bans for doping on Wednesday. Ethiopian-born Abelegesi was disqualified of her results from August 26, 2007 to August 25, 2009 after a retest of a 2007 sample showed positive for a banned steroid. She will lose the 5,000 and 10,000 silver medals from the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Bulut, a 1,500 meters silver medalist at London 2012, was handed a 4-year ban for a violation of the athlete's biological passport rules. That race has been described by some as the dirtiest race in history. The International Hockey Federation officially confirmed that the Men's Hockey World League final for 2017 and Hockey Men's World Cup 2018 will be held in Bhubaneswar, India. Fans will descend upon the Kalinga Stadium to share the glory of 2 of hockey's biggest events, where World League and World Cup champions will be crowned. The venue itself is already familiar to hockey fans. Not only did it successfully host the 2014 Men's Hockey Champions Trophy, it is also home to the current champions of the Hockey India League, the Kalinga Lancers.
And finally, of course, the Bangkok Zoo kept its animals cool from the summer heat by spraying water and feeding them ice-cold popsicles and yogurt. Officials in Dusit Zoo fed animals some treats made from fruits and syrup along with the frozen fish and yogurt in Thailand's hottest month. The zoo also cooled down its animals by setting up sprinklers, increasing shade and monitoring the animals closely. I'm going to leave you with these visuals from Thailand. This is Frank Pereira signing off. See you again next time.